Venezuela has surpassed the production of 1 million barrels of oil per day as its industry recovers from the impacts of US sanctions. At least 13 people died after a boat carrying asylum seekers capsized in the Aegean Sea late Friday, bringing the combined death toll from 3 accidents in as many days to at least 27. Gambia's Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission has found former President Yahya Jammeh guilty of murder, rape and torture during his 22-year rule. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. Venezuela has surpassed the production of 1 million barrels of oil per day as its industry recovers from the impacts of US sanctions. During a message addressed to sector workers, Oil Minister Tariq El-Assami expressed gratitude for their efforts, which have allowed for a gradual recovery of production levels. El-Assami stressed that in spite of the criminal blockade of the United States, all sector workers have been at the forefront of the efforts of the working class to overcome obstacles to national development. The official figures show that production is now double that at the end of 2020. Peruvian President Pedro Castillo issued a Christmas greeting to the nation in which he called to tackle discrimination and hatred and express solidarity with families suffering from poverty and inequality.
The road we have traveled so far is still short compared to the immense needs and shortages that our country has and that the pandemic has revealed in their full magnitude. My solidarity and support for the families that suffer the consequences of poverty and inequality. With the same humility with which I took office 5 months ago, I want to tell you that we work tirelessly to improve the living conditions of all Peruvians, especially the most vulnerable, who are the recent deaths of our government. On these important dates, I also renew our commitment to continue fighting against discrimination and hatred to build a country in which we deserve and treat each other equally and can trust each other as well. Peru is bigger than its problems, and it's precisely our people who, with their daily efforts, provide us with the certainty that everything can and should be improved.
Bolivian President Luis Arce highlighted the achievements of his administration this year and reiterated the commitments made by his government for the year 2022 as the country works to recover from the impact of the pandemic.
Last Christmas, the Bolivian people were experiencing very uncertain times, especially with regard to health and the economy. We did not have vaccines and therefore, as a national government, we immediately launched a comprehensive plan to fight COVID-19, which includes free tests and vaccines, as well as coordination among all levels of government. We have reduced unemployment, poverty and inequalities. We have all contributed with our efforts to the construction of the Bolivia we dream of, where Bolivian has a decent life and a country of which we can be proud.
The governments of China and Cuba are implementing a cooperation plan to promote the Belt and Road Initiative for Economic Development. The plan was signed by Cuban Deputy Prime Minister Ricardo Cabrizas and the President of the National Development and Reform Commission of China, He Lifeng, on Friday. The plan constitutes one of the main milestones in economic relations between the two countries in 2021, which will allow for the effective implementation of the Memorandum of Understanding signed by Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel in November 2018. The first list of projects as part of the cooperation efforts include the development of sectors such as renewable energy, trade and infrastructure, tourism, finance, telecommunications, science and technology, food and biomedicine. In the presence of Army General Raul Castro and Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel, the last session of the Cuban Parliament was held in Havana, with a series of bills discussed as the country works to reform laws in accordance with its new constitution. Our correspondent Fabiola Lopez brings us more details.
The last gathering of Cuban lawmakers of 2021 began with a tribute to the educators of the island and to those who participated 60 years ago in one of the greatest feats of the Cuban Revolution, the literacy campaign. At the conclusion of the intense days of parliamentary debate, President Miguel Díaz-Canel refers to the victory of meeting face-to-face after 2 years of the pandemic, which is also a defeat for those who speak of Cuba as a failed state.
Es una derrota, dijo, para los que hablan de Cuba como un Estado fallido.
Un Estado fallido no soporta 62 años de bloqueo recrudecido.
A failed state cannot withstand 62 years of tightened blockade in the midst of the pandemic, nor can a dictatorship endure such blows. Female reject these terms with which they try to label a revolution that in successive acts of recreation has become an example of true dissidence to the global hegemony imposed by the dictatorship of capital.
de real disidencia a la hegemonía global impuesta por la dictadura del capital.
2 years after his appointment, the Cuban Prime Minister offered a report to the National Assembly. When referring to the task of the elimination of the dual currency system, which aims at giving the Cuban peso a central role in the island's financial system, he explained that the difficult situation of the world's economy and that of the country itself, along with problems generated due to the design and implementation of this policy, have had undesired results and sparked multiple dissatisfactions, which must be addressed and rectified.
Se mantiene el objetivo planteado de otorgarle al peso su papel como centro del sistema.
The objective of giving the Cuban peso its role at the center of the Cuban financial system is maintained. To achieve that, assertive measures must be adopted to halt the inflationary spiral and secure the country's macroeconomic stabilization, as well as boosting domestic production and increasing supply, which will be the shortest path to gradually resolving this complex problem.
Será el camino más corto en la solución gradual de este complejo problema.
En su intervención ante el Parlamento,
In his speech to the Parliament, Minister of Economy Alejandro Gil informed that the Cuban economy is expected to continue its gradual recovery in 2022 and achieve growth in the region of 4%. He explained that tackling high inflation is a main challenge for the economy today.
es el principal reto de la economía cubana.
No es verdad. Y es una matriz de opinión que intenta montar al enemigo.
It's not true, and it's an invention of the enemy to claim that the cause of inflation in Cuba is the correct design of the monetary restructuring process and the inadequate moment in which the government decided to implement it. This is not true. All of this would have been present with or without the monetary restructuring. Without currency regulation, we will have shortage. We will have loss of purchasing power. We will have price increases. All of these phenomena that are the basis of inflation are not caused by monetary restructuring, regardless of the fact that the regulation has its designs and implementation issues.
Con independencia de que el ordenamiento monetario, y somos nosotros los primeros en reconocerlo, tiene problemas de diseño y muchos problemas en su implementación.
During the 8th session of Parliament, Cuban legislators approved laws related to land use planning and the military judicial system, as well as the 23rd version of the Code of Families, which will be submitted to a popular consultation process.
Es un proyecto de sumas y multiplicaciones.
It is a project of adding and multiplying alternatives and opportunities, a democratic conquest that recognizes the rights of those who did not have them and reinforces and guarantees our rights to those who already enjoy them.
Dios bendiga este pueblo en el año que comienza. Dios bendiga a esta asamblea.
God bless this nation in the year that begins. God bless this assembly because Cuban families are present in this assembly. God bless our sky, our land, the infinite greatness of the work we build every day. To our President and our dear Raúl, homeland of death, in the name of our faith.
Patria o muerte en nombre de la fe.
The parliamentary session began with a standing ovation in memory of the historic leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro.
We feel the presence of the undefeated commander-in-chief.
Just a few days before the beginning of the 63rd year of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel's chair remains vacant as a tribute.
Fabiola López, Telesur, La Habana.
In Argentina, the Patagonia region is once again battling forest fires, forcing residents to evacuate their homes. Fires are raging in high altitude, destroying thousands of hectares of native forest in several southern provinces. Argentina's Environment Ministry reported that the firefighting efforts are complicated by difficult terrain, long distances between places, strong winds, high temperatures and dry vegetation in the midst of a drought. Hundreds of professional and volunteer firefighters, along with employees from the Provincial Fire Management Plan, National Environmental Ministry, national parks, local government and Mapuche communities are working to battle the blazes. And we'll be right back after this very short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The World Health Organization authorized the emergency use of an AstraZeneca vaccine jointly produced by Argentina and Mexico, the first such decision for a COVID-19 vaccine manufactured in Latin America. The vaccine is jointly manufactured by Argentina's Mabexians, which reproduces this active pharmaceutical ingredient, and Mexico's Laboratorios Leomont, which mixes and finishes the product for distribution. The Director General of the Pan American Health Organization welcomed the news, noting it marks an important milestone for Latin America and highlights the importance of technology transfer to increase the availability of quality COVID-19 vaccines in the region. WHO emergency use listing will facilitate procurement and distribution of this vaccine through the PAHO as well as COVAX, the international mechanism to increase global vaccine access. Ecuador on Thursday became the first country to make coronavirus vaccines obligatory for children as young as 5 following the arrival of the Omicron variant. In a statement, the Health Ministry declared vaccination compulsory for the entire eligible population, with the only exception for people who have medical reasons for not getting the jab. It added the decision was founded in the Constitution, in which the right to health must be guaranteed by the state. Some 69% of Ecuador's population has received 2 vaccine doses to date. To combat a rise in new cases after the Omicron variant was first detected a week ago, authorities made it compulsory to present a vaccine record for people to enter restaurants, shopping malls, cinemas, theatres and other public places.
It's been quite relaxed, but with this new variant we have had to look to the vaccine again. Rather than being mandatory, I think we as citizens should have the conscience to come personally to get vaccinated without being forced.
It should not be mandatory. We should be aware that we can spread to other people if we are responsible. Due to work, they made a vaccination certificate mandatory to be able to enter.
At least 13 people died after a boat carrying asylum seekers capsized in the Aegean Sea late Friday, bringing the combined death toll from 3 accidents in as many days to at least 27. The Coast Guard said 62 people were rescued after a sailboat capsized late Friday around 8 kilometres off the island of Paros. Survivors told the Coast Guard that about 80 people had been on the vessel. Authorities said 5 Coast Guard patrol boats, 9 private vessels, a helicopter and a military transport plane continued the nighttime search for more survivors, while Coast Guard divers also participated. The latest tragedies come as smugglers increasingly favour a dangerous route from Turkey to Italy, which avoids Greece's heavily patrolled eastern Aegean islands that for years have seen thousands of people fleeing conflict and poverty. And over 200 asylum seekers rescued in the Mediterranean by the NGO chartered ship CI4 were finally allowed to dock in the Sicilian port of Bossalo after authorities in Malta refused to receive them. Just an hour earlier, Church of Malta had appealed to the government not to leave these asylum seekers, and another 70 reported stranded by alarm phone on Wednesday at sea, and had even offered them shelter in its homes, but the armed forces turned down the CI's request for assistance. The 223 rescued people, who include pregnant women and children, had been at sea for more than 3 days before they were rescued. A spokesperson for CI said they were dehydrated, seasick, have infections and infected wounds, broken bones, and one child could not even walk. The 2 Russian-Syrian ministerial coordinating bodies on the return of Syrian refugees and displaced persons held a video conference on Thursday, December 23rd, to follow up on their joint efforts to ensure adequate conditions for the return of Syrians to their homes in areas liberated from terrorism. Our correspondent Hisham Wanas has the story.
Las autoridades políticas, militares y sociales de Siria y Rusia presentaron durante la reunión.
The political, military and social authorities of Syria and Russia presented a report on the evolution of the return of Syrians who were displaced by the terrorist war imposed on their country. During the meeting, Damascus and Moscow denounced that Western sanctions and the U.S. occupation of part of Syrian territory are preventing adequate conditions from being ensured for the returnees.
Impiden que se aseguren las condiciones adecuadas para los retornados.
We demand the lifting of sanctions and the reestablishment of political, economic and trade relations with all countries, and we ask the global community to contribute to the reconstruction of the country in order to encourage the return of Syrian refugees to their country. More than 2.6 million Syrians have returned to their homes from 2018 to date, of which more than 1 million refugees returned from abroad, and there were more than 5 million internally displaced persons who also returned to their homes after those areas were free from terrorism. This work continues despite all Western attempts to prevent it from succeeding. Damascus notes that the return of refugees is a priority for the government, which is providing all kinds of assistance to achieve this goal. The government is grateful for Russia's support in this effort, especially in the fight against terrorism, the scientific training of younger generations, and the reconstruction of the country's economy and infrastructure.
y la reconstrucción de la economía y la infraestructura del país.
We highly value the battle of the Syrian people against terrorism, and I believe that all countries of the world should help Syria in this battle and in its effort to normalize the situation in the country. And not only Russia, in particular the United States, which continues its destructive action in Syria. Russian language courses are part of the efforts to improve living conditions in Syria, to encourage the return of the refugees, and hopefully in the future we will include returning refugees in these courses, which also help to spread the culture of Russia.
In addition to the meeting, the Russian side has carried out several activities for psychological support for children of the martyrs of the Syrian army in different provinces, as well as for orphans who were left without family because of the war. This humanitarian work is part of the Russian effort to support the Syrian government and people to normalize the situation in their country.
Hisham Wanous, Telesur, Damascus, Syria.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Gambia's Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission has found former President Yahya Jammeh guilty of murder, rape and torture during his 22-year rule. The commission was set up when Jammeh left Gambia for exile in Equatorial Guinea after refusing to accept electoral defeat in 2016. The final report following a 3-year inquiry into abuses based on testimony from hundreds of witnesses was presented to President Adama Barrow earlier this month but was made public only Friday. The commission said that Jammeh, who came to power in a 1994 coup, and his henchmen, including a personal hit squad known as the Junglers, were responsible for 44 specific crimes against journalists, ex-soldiers, political opponents and civilians. He was also responsible for the rape of sexual abuse of 3 women, according to the commission, which recommended that those responsible for the abuses be prosecuted.
I'd like to, from the onset, assure Gambians first and foremost, and friends and partners of the Gambia, that this government is committed to implementing the report of the Commission. However, you will all be aware the report is being studied, and government will publish a white paper, hopefully 5 months from now.
This Christmas has been an especially tough one for thousands of residents of Goma and the surrounding area in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, who continue to live in camps after the eruption of the Mount Nyiragongo volcano forced them from their homes. The eruption without warning on May 22nd forced tens of thousands of people to flee the city as lava flowed through their communities. With living conditions in the camps tough for many families facing financial hardship after losing homes and businesses, Christmas cheer has been long awaited. In a church in Kabati, 15 kilometers north of Goma, children gathered for a Christmas Eve Mass and sang songs with the community. On Christmas Day, youth volunteers from a local charity tried to bring some festive cheer to a camp inside Goma City, where several hundred families live in tents.
We are living in a really rotten situation, but despite that we have come together to participate in the Mass here along with other kids, because Christmas is a big day and the children love to take part in the Mass. But unfortunately, we are upset that we haven't been able to find anything to give to the children as presents.
More than 15,000 people say they are victims of forced eviction in Dakar, the capital of Senegal, due to the construction of a new regional express railway line. After 5 years' work and at a cost of more than $1 billion, on Monday the city will finally welcome a new commuter railway line, which will slash journey times and decongest the capital. But thousands of residents claim they've not been properly compensated for homes and businesses that were demolished to make way for the line. Many are also furious that the rehousing they were promised has not yet been completed. The government says that almost everyone who's owed compensation has received it, but accepts that some resettlements have not yet happened.
Here was the lung of employment, the lung of recovery of the unemployed. So more than 100,000 families found their daily bread in these places. They were evicted in a brutal way, without being compensated according to the norms of the Plan of Actions and Resettlement.
Thousands of Sudanese protesters who rallied Saturday to mark 2 months since the military coup were met with tear gas. Demonstrators converged on the presidential palace in Khartoum, the headquarters of the military government in control since General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan seized power on October 25th. Burhan held civilian leader Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok under effective house arrest for weeks, but reinstated him on November 21st due to international pressure under a deal promising elections for July 2023. Security forces blocked off roads and fired tear gas as they moved to disperse the crowds. The ongoing pro-democracy protests have been met with heavy repression, with at least 48 people killed, according to local sources. And we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss. Thank you for watching.